Let me share briefly. One of the highlights of my term of service has been the monitorial delegation, as I mentioned, when we went to the Middle East. And we visited with partner churches, the Evangelical Presbyterian Church in Egypt, or Synod of the Nile, as well as the leadership of the Coptic Orthodox Church. This was in May. And the leaders and members of those two churches had told us that they were preparing for what looked like to be a second revolution. And as we all saw that unfold, indeed, President Morsi and the Muslim Brotherhood were toppled. The final visit, as we were visiting with the leadership of the Synod of the Nile, we had the occasion to meet one of their leaders, a retired pastor, who I have characterized, both in his countenance and his posture and words, was sort of like Jedi Master Yoda, to Star Wars. Very wise. Pastor Neal Presa had pastored several congregations in Cairo. One of these congregations, once upon a time, had wanted to do a rebuilding of their entire church building. Now in Egypt, if any church wanted to have any renovation, even replacing a roof, you have to go to the presidential palace for authorization. So this is not going to your local zoning board. You go to Cairo. That would be like this congregation going to the White House to get an authorization from President Obama. Well, then President Mubarak was very sparse in giving these authorizations. Pastor Zaki's congregation felt this was an unjust act. There was no reason to deny their request. So what they did for the next 2 years, their congregation took shovels and pickaxes, and they dismantled and deconstructed the interior of the existing structure. They placed the debris in bags and placed them on flatbed trucks, and then from 12 midnight to 6 a.m. for 2 years, these flatbed trucks would silently take away the debris. Once the interior was deconstructed and dismantled, about 9 inches to 1 foot away from the existing structure, they built the new building. The outer structure provided the cover, the outer shell. Now their next door neighbors, who are Muslim neighbors, of course knew they could both see and hear what was going on. But those neighbors didn't rat them out. Those neighbors kept the secret. Why? Because this congregation had built over the years solid relationships through ministries of care, ministries of compassion, providing after-school care to their children, drinking coffee at the sidewalk cafe, building those solid relationships, not because they strategized, but just because it was a natural thing to do as part of how they understood their call to the gospel. After these 2 years, the interior, the new church was constructed, and they dismantled the outer shell. They were nicknamed the inside-outside church. Pastor Zaki was found guilty. He was reported to the authorities, and there was the proof right there. He had defied the order. He was sentenced to 15 years in prison and ordered to pay an exorbitant fine. When he reported to the prison, the jailer received his papers and had recognized him as the pastor who had officiated at the funeral of his mother. The jailer crossed out the 15 and put 0. He was let go. The congregation, together with some of the Muslim neighbors, raised the funds to pay this exorbitant fine. He went on to faithfully pastor that congregation, and then another congregation, and several others, and then retired. Pastor Zaki, one of his daughter, Anza, is slated to be, very shortly, the first ever ordained woman pastor in the entire history of Egypt. The soon-to-be Reverend Anzaki has accepted my invitation to be one of the 5 preachers at the next 221st General Assembly.